Hello, 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 and welcome to this Quickfix live Instagram chat thing with Andy from Subtheory. He'll be joining us in a bit, I guess. So I'm just hopefully there's a notification went out saying I started a live video. I'm on time for once, so that's quite cool. Hello, Andy. I will try and add you. Maybe nope, I managed to wave at you, so that was good. But maybe try and request, I guess, to come in, and that might work because I can't see anything. Oh, great! There, I should be able to. Here, in here. I'm in here. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello. Did I
Hi.
join? I never know with these things whether I've joined or not.
Yeah, no, I for a little while it's always I feel for the people who watch it back because at the beginning is just me going, is this working? Okay, yeah, it's easy. Do you know what I mean? It's not exactly the
Is
most
anyone going to turn up? Are they?
auspicious. I think there's already some people in there, so that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So
Hello,
yeah,
Mum.
yeah, thanks for spending your time with us. I'm going to be wobbly today because I've not got much battery power, so I don't want it to cut out. So I'm going to hand hold you. So sorry if I'm quite close up. I'd rather be like this, but
Thought you were being all creepy and weird for a second. And
yeah, no. What can you tell me about? Yeah. So hello, sex bodies. Hello, common goal. Hello, Grace. Hello, sound on high. The names are going too fast. So many people.
hello,
Um,
everyone.
so hello all. So for anybody who doesn't know, I'll quickly do the preamble, which is we have a singles club with Quickfix recordings. It's a cool thing by which every month, on the first of the month, you receive something that you don't know what it's going to be, and it's always amazing. Luckily, so
Always
uh,
amazing. That's
so
great.
far, yeah, that's a guarantee. And and yeah, obviously it's a subscribers thing. You get loads of bonuses. People do live like things and everything, and it's a cool little club. And we're trying to make it even more like a club. We're trying to work out ways to make it super sociable. Just not quite sure whether. I keep saying a chat room, and everybody looks at me like I'm from like the Stone Age kind of thing. Like, but
Clubhouse.
yeah, maybe, but are enough people on it? Do you know what I mean? I want to make it like really everybody, I don't know, what do
The
I
amount
just
of
send out?
notifications I get for it, I think the world's on it. I think, but
Really, already? Jeez, that's something, isn't it? Yeah, well, I've only been on it a little bit so far, but yeah. Yeah, so anyway, so the point being, you are this month's single of the month. And
thank you.
so we thought we'd get to know you a little bit better. I obviously know you already a bit, but everybody else presumably doesn't. So first off, I think just tell us how, like just in a bit of a condensed nutshell form, like
Hmm.
your journey from becoming a musician to the sub theory, just before the sub theory,
So
basically.
right from the very start.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't expect it to be too short, but
You say I'm old.
no, I'm just
So
saying it's like your life so far, basically. So
I started. I've always been into music right from a young age. The usual kind of thing. I guess a lot of people that raiding their parents' record collections. My parents have always sort of really been into to music. Slightly different, kind of being '60s kind of boomers. That they
yeah,
were into like. Well, my mum's into the Stones. My dad was into
right.
the Beatles. Their common ground, I think, was like.
Did they argue quite a lot about this?
Well, my mum would just go dismissive. Well, no, I don't even, the Beatles aren't even a band. It's the Stones. But my dad was like, oh, I like both because he likes to play.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Sure.
but so, and their common ground, I think, was sort of like more folky type, Simon and Garfunkel type.
Right. Yeah.
Not quite Dylan, but that kind of fits all sort of.
Yeah.
Whenever if I say it's unobtrusive, that sort of makes it sound very mediocre. What I mean is,
Sure. No, but hippie-esque
right, right.
stuff. Yeah.
But the brilliant thing I found with those from a young age is that because of the way they're recorded, playing with the balance means you could isolate the drums
Yeah.
and the vocals
Yeah.
and
Banned
the
from
guitar
like
and the
guitar
vocals.
and yeah,
So I
voice.
was
Yeah.
going on this, from sort of 3 or 4 kind of making my own little remixes of,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Wicked.
I never knew, but if you go back and listen to some of the Simon and Garfunkel stuff, there's some break beats up
So
there.
Puff
There's a really
Daddy didn't invent the remix after all. It
no, he
was
didn't.
you,
Well, I think Dave
or at least the
Mancuso.
sound clash. What was that?
um,
Sorry.
I think like people like Dave Mancuso might disagree with you,
Yeah,
but
sure. Yeah, I think. Well,
um,
they probably disagreed when Puff Daddy released I Invented the Remix." Being honest, but
well,
yeah, but yeah. I mean, you invented the sound clash. You could release that as like a mixtape sometime soon. Like maybe that's like something to
if I
do.
didn't get sued for by Simon and Garfunkel, I think they didn't like it. I'm going to go down a little rabbit hole. Paul Simon didn't even like didn't like Garfunkel, did he?
No, I think they did have
He'd get
beef,
jealous
didn't
of,
they?
of when they'd sing a song and he'd walk off stage. I think. I don't really know. I
Right.
don't
I
know
don't know
about
the
them.
ins and outs. I'm not much of a Simon and Garfunkel expert, really.
No?
Grace really likes them, but like I like some of their songs. Like I like some of it. I'm all right with that. The Boxer's really good. That's
Yes,
like
that is a very good song. It is a very
that's
good song.
like the sound, the big. I think I'm more into the big sound of that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a really awesome. I don't know what that production job is, but it's wicked. You know. So, and
Which
when
kind of
it's
brings me
older
on,
stuff.
which brings me forward. There is a reason for this. It brings me forward because back in the sorry, my dog's just running the room.
Special guest star.
It, Angus, come here, come here, come here. No, he's not interested.
No.
Looking for food. But
No
it's
pay,
interesting
no
because
show.
one of the things that used to be around, I don't know if this is a thing that everyone knows, but they used to have stereo test records, so it would be a whole manner of different songs made by different sort of artists where they would be set up deliberately to sort of make use of that new stereo sound.
Right, yeah.
But there'd be things like the Button Down Brass plays some hit of the day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever heard Button Down Brass, but they're really, really super funky. They take
Right,
a
I
normal
know
track and they just
the type of thing, yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, oh my god! So I got an Amiga computer with a sampler, as like 8-bit hardware add-on, and I found I could sample it, and I was sampling these little beats and little breaks. Actually, I used to do the same thing on tapes. So I used to like record,
take bits,
play, rewind it, take a little part.
Too, yeah.
And I got the hardware sample. I'm like, oh my god, I can do this without having to keep going back and forward. And literally just do what I like with it. And that's when I just went, I'm going to go. I got a 4-track tape recorder and I started recording. I started collecting sound from all over.
Yeah.
So they used to be, used to get magazines. I don't know if you remember this with tapes on the front. So I used to sometimes liberate some from Smiths or something like that, and all manner of different ones. So I found a fishing tape, which is about angling, but the tape itself was about buying fish.
Yeah.
So I used to create these little sound collages with someone just going, "Thanks for coming with me to buy some fish," Luke, with some sort of weird synth music. So that's kind of really probably the most creative I've ever been. I've been trying to get back to that ever since.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? When you were saying that, like I was thinking about like first off when you're saying before I even had a 4-track, like the kind of levels that I'd go to kind of like feed tape players into other tape players, or when I had a tape player that recorded, like open air sound, I'd have another tape player there so I can play the instrumental thing, and then maybe have something on a record that had like a vocal so that I could, like an a cappella, so that I could put that over and try and like make things. And then when I finally got a 4-track, it was like, oh my God, the doors have blown off.
But it would change it, because you would go, right, okay, that was possible before, now what's possible? And things like, tape, the 4-track, you turn the tape over,
and
it's all backwards. So I just start re-recording the backwards stuff already recorded. And then I had visions it'd be like Abbey Road Studios, when they had in the old days, they had bits of people, holding bits of tape and feeding them in sort of manually. I sort of, in my mind, that's what I'm doing. But not to that
I mean, I think of things still very much in that analog way, even though I'm working in a digital. That's why I only just moved off of a digital workstation where it's like it's all still knobs and faders. So like even though it's all digital, it's like fooling you into thinking that it's old school kind of thing. And it was a natural kind of transition, I guess, for me going from a 4-track background to kind of get something that was I'm hunched over. That's the weird thing
Did you
about it
ever?
as well.
Did you
When you're on
ever?
a computer, you're like sat up, and it's like, this is weird. I'm not hunched over anything.
Right. Did you ever get into the world of trackers at all?
Of what?
Of trackers. So back in kind of almost pre door days, they had these. It looks like the Matrix a little bit. It's just like usually 4 channels of
Right.
just it's doing
Code.
this, like basically code doing this.
Yeah.
And you insert little samples into it, and it only had 4 channels. I think I had Med, or it later went to.
Oh right, yeah. Now that sounds too technological.
Or Soundtrack or Pro Track, I think it was. And you literally, it wouldn't, to pitch it down, it would slow the whole sample down. So you had to sort of work out, right, if it's
what the effects
I've got
are going to be before you
it's
do
going to be
it.
slower, so I need to then play it faster on us. It was kind of,
Yeah.
It got you thinking in a different way.
Right, yeah.
I worked out how to play this ages it. I worked out how to play Charlie Says by Prodigy.
Oh, the Prodigy, yeah, yeah. Wicked.
Just from that one sound, that Hoover.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Because as you pitch it down, it changes speed.
So then, what did you do after you've been experimenting? What was your next?
I got really into DJing, and that's kind of where I sort of put.
When you say DJing, you mean like kind of what old school hip hop style DJing?
Yeah, but old school hip hop, but funk and soul and disco, bit of drum and bass.
Right.
Only later sort of got into like a bit of house and garage as well, but it was mainly that kind of. I got really into like turntablism, so I was kind of doing that, and that I stopped sort of making my own kind of music. I just really got right. Okay, I'm just gonna really focus on this and try and be the best.
Yeah.
Scratch DJ possible. I wasn't very good, but
right. Anyway. Yeah.
Oh no, I enjoyed it. It's really good. Yeah. And you know, I hold my own a little bit, but you see guys that my dream was to do like the DMC type stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd work out a little. I work out a little 3-minute routine and go, oh, that's amazing, and then watch them go, oh, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere near.
Yeah, it's not even on the on the board. Yeah, That's I mean, I think those things. Being honest, when you see like the level of proficiency of the best of those guys, it's just you might as well say I'm going to take up, I don't know, like table tennis and become like a world champion, or chess, or do you know what I mean? Like something like where it's just like you're either somehow that great or you're just not, do you know what I mean? And that's like, and then just have fun with it and do some music, do you know what I mean? Do some good music or whatever. But
absolutely. And I think and 2 things. First of all, is you're right to a degree, but I think what we sometimes do in the pursuit of that mastery is forget that it's supposed to be fun. And actually, if you're having fun, it doesn't really matter how proficient you are.
Yeah, I would say you could widen that maybe even to like music in general, like in the pursuit of, or maybe the arts, or anybody I know who's kind of like pursued something quite hard. I think that can kind of kill a lot of the fun elements. Just the more professional you move into anything, really, makes it unfortunately take on work elements, doesn't it? So yeah, you do have to be careful about, like, if you really love something, you might want to just keep it as something that you adore from afar, if you know what I mean, like rather than getting stuck in it. I don't know, protect your heart or whatever, and also your respect for the actual industry itself, because I think that, like, how I used to look at the music industry before I had anything to do with it was like totally different. Do you know what I mean? Like total idolatry. Do you know what I mean? And now it's like, it's like fair to say it'd be cynical, or a little bit like view it with a fair degree of suspicion.
Well, there's 2 different things, isn't it? There's music, and then there's music industry, and I think that the music industry isn't fun. Generally, it's not fun. It kind of almost sucks the fun out of it because it's the industry. It almost could be take the music part of it off and just think about the industry, because it is just a business.
Yeah.
And it just happens to sell music. It could be selling anything. And that's where the cynical part comes in, because that's why you get bad music. And what I mean by bad music is, oh, I don't know,
No,
you still there?
just yeah, it's fine. I just to.
Is that you or me?
I think it's you.
Is it me?
I think it's you. I think it's you. I seem to be fine. I don't know. Someone telling us might be able to say.
How would you know if you got any Kyle?
Got any Kylie? Yeah. I don't think like we have a lot of Kylie, but you know, you could.
It's you. What's that?
It's
Lyra.
apparently it's me.
Oh, it's you.
Apparently,
See,
yeah.
it's not me. It's you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's not the first time I've been told that. Right, so sex bodies.
See,
so
some people have got me, but
Subtheory.
not.
Yeah, well, why don't you just talk for now?
Okay, I'll just talk. So I don't know if anyone can hear that, but Lee's just saying, just talk. So I think that, so the point I was making before, you know, the internet in Bath stopped. Is that just generally in Bath, by the way, that the internet doesn't work, or is that just where you live?
No.
But I think that's where you get bad music. I've never been a fan of saying something is good or bad because, like a lot of people say, oh, pop music is bad. I don't think pop music is bad. I think bad pop is bad. If that makes sense. I think bad rock can be bad. You know, I think it's, for me, it's that the cynical part is when marketing, not marketing, it's not the right word. I've got to be careful because marketing's listening.
Yeah.
Apologies, common goal and grace. It's when it's sort of cynically marketed that it's almost done by committee. So they say, right, this is currently what is happening in music. Let's make music just like this to appeal to this very narrow demographic.
Yes.
That's when I think music becomes bad, because it stops being fun, stops being from the heart. And I think that's the difference to me between good and bad music. So
yeah. I don't even know if people can hear me. Like, maybe update me if I suddenly pop in. If not, you maybe repeat what I said. But I think a good like record label or whatever, and in the early days of music, maybe there was the kind of thing of someone would produce, or certainly during the best days, maybe that someone would produce something, and then the marketing team decide how to market that. Whereas now it's very much the marketing team kind of deciding what the product should be in order to make their job easy, if that makes sense.
But there's exceptions to that, and obviously you look at things of, so you say manufactured music is bad, right? We all accept that, except you look at somewhere like Berry Gordy and Motown. That's the very definition of manufactured sound. Literally, they took people in at one end, did a load of stuff to them, spat out an artist at the end, and that is some of the greatest recorded music of all time. So
yeah, I mean, thank you, Cloudwell. But I don't even mind a little Spice Girls and a couple of Take That songs and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not anti, and I'm a big fan of Trevor Horn, who's, you know, like,
Trevor Horn's
awesome.
That
most of the stuff that he does is this big kind of essentially manufactured sound, but it is what it is anyway. So, but anyway, we digress. So where did you go from the DJing? How did that?
So I kind of alongside that, I should have mentioned the fact that I always wanted to be a rapper. Well, to be honest, I always wanted to be a singer, but I can't sing. So the next best thing was rapping for me, because it's like singing without being in tune.
I never let that put me off. Not being able to sing.
That takes a certain amount of cojones to do that. But it's so, and that's kind of really why I started producing properly, was because this was pre-internet, pre-YouTube days, where I couldn't find anyone to make beats or whatever for me, so I would literally just go and make my own to rap over. That's all it was. And then I suddenly had this realization that I was a much better producer than I was a rapper.
Right.
Perhaps I should focus on that. I think it was, and again, this makes me sound old. I think when I was first starting out making music, there was a very old school type of way of doing it, and then suddenly overnight everyone's got really good, and I was like, oh, left behind. So let's focus on something I can actually do, which is like
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I mean, to a degree, I'm astonished when I see kid bands and how they can play now compared to like how I could play when I got in a kid band and stuff, or not me, even like my contemporaries or whatever. It's just astonishing, really, like in terms of like, and then you see like, you know, young producers, like I obviously through Quickfix, we have tons of young producers we're in touch with and stuff, and the stuff they're doing is like,
Oh, it's incredible.
I could
Yeah.
never have done that at their age. Like not in a, I had to go to like college and, you know, kind
But
of
do you
like
think it was?
spend years.
I know. I think they're incredible. I think that their exposure has been it's been vital to the way that they've kind of developed in that way. When I was kind of, and this is going to sound again like I'm really old. When I was sort of learning, there wasn't anywhere to learn. You had to go to college, totally. Or you buy a book that's immediately out of date. You know.
Yeah, that was that Sound on Sound
right.
magazine or whatever. Yeah, like real adult magazine, like.
Right,
to
and
like,
it's really serious, yeah. And you know, there'd be no one to explain the terms to you. I'd read it, I don't know about you, but I'd read it and go, I understand about three words
this?
about it, put it down. So now you can learn everything on YouTube. I mean everything, and it's good and it's bad because there is a brilliant amount of stuff on there. There's some really bad tutorials, and I think it sort of makes everybody sort of sound the same a bit.
Sure.
So I wonder whether through being technically proficient at something, you lose a little something in the making it up as you go along kind of.
I think
you know what I mean?
The balance is always like the key, isn't it? Like I always studiously avoided learning chords because I had an early interaction with the guitarist whereby he played a kick-ass riff and I said, that's really good. And he said, oh, it's just A, C, and D. And I was like, I don't care. Like, it sounds kick-ass. And like, I thought, and I immediately thought, like, oh, right, is this what happens? When you've learned all of it, you just like hate everything you play because it all seems like it's just this sequence of, you know, chords that you've learned. Whereas like, so I decided, right, I'm just going to keep it a mystery, what I'm making for as long as possible. And then slowly but surely you have to do a little bit of like learning just to make sure you don't, you know, like not know what you're doing basically, you know what I mean? And so you can get any better.
I think, I mean, I'd like to know more music theory than I do. I am always learning it and I'm always trying to sort of push it forward and learn as much as I can. I think that at the same time, I don't want to, I sometimes find the more I learn, the more robotic I become in applying it.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
suddenly I realise that I'm just then copying somebody else or something like that.
I used to do this thing. Phil, who lived with me, Phil Honey, who was in Rock Travolta and Doubt Frequency and stuff like that, and Boy with the Toy with Me, he once made a song just without even listening to it. He just like typed it all out and just made the whole song. Yeah, just like with all the, you know, with the keys, with all the dots in all the right places and everything. Just made a song like that, and then he played it. He just made the whole thing, and then he played it, and it was a perfectly good song. And it was like, geez, wow. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's two ways of looking at that, isn't there? Like, I think invention is the key, isn't it? And like, you can't teach being original because that comes from within you. It's you expressing yourself, isn't it? So
have you heard the AI songs?
Yeah, I mean,
where
like,
an AI
I heard
learns
that
a song
Kurt one. Like, I heard the Nirvana one, and I was like, it's not really though, is it? It's not quite right. There's a few things about it. It's like, first off, it's like the kind of songwriting that is in utero type songwriting, but with the production job of a Nevermind kind of production job. So immediately something's like, oh, there's something wrong about this. And then secondly, it's like someone's doing a Nirvana song, like lyrically. It's not really like something that would have come out of him. It's like someone who imagining
but
what
I think the point is that the computers listen to it and gone, I understand how this works now. I'm going to churn out something like similar. And I think for me, that from a technical point of view, I'm like, but it does bear, but you know, bring into question when it gets more advanced, and it gets to the point where it kind of you sort of take the human element out of the equation. You could do, and this is some time. Do you sort of then lose the soul from the song? Do you then sort of lose that?
Of course. Of course, because that computer hasn't gone through the anguish that Kurt Cobain has to make those songs. So there's a lack of, like, so it's just the machine. No, you know, you're like, the point is being like the man and machine. Like, I think of you as a man machine combo, not as a machine
Oh, me
entirely.
or personally or someone?
No, you as in your
Oh,
music. Do you know what
oh,
I mean? I
okay.
think of it like it's got a human heart and soul in it, but it's electronic. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think of it as just cold. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it uses elements of cold to great effect, but it's got a human heart at its center. Do you know what I mean? So
Well, it's funny because I think the more we progress with, let's say, music technology, for me, and this is only my personal experience of it, it's everything's got cleaner and more precise, and I found that I've ended up having to put more dirt back into it, if that makes sense, to kind of, so I'm sort of removing it
yeah,
using modern production techniques, and then adding it back
yeah,
in.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I
The
remember
right dirt that you want, I guess. It's
yeah,
the it's
I used
just
to I used to
making.
have this really terrible amp, right, with a really noisy cable that came out of my Amiga sound, and I recorded it onto a tape. So you'd get the sound of the Amiga power because the cables weren't shielded. You'd get the sort of the hum of the amp and the hiss of the tape. So you get
Right.
these things where you listen back and you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, that sounds terrible." Now
Now you
you'd be
really love
sampling
it.
that to put
Yeah.
it back in to say
I,
that's how it should sound.
every so often I go back to old mini discs and stuff, and I
Right,
grab like beats I really like, and I put them
right,
in new stuff because it's got a texture that just other, and from my 4-track tapes and things like that, it's
yeah,
just got texture that other stuff doesn't have, and it's like, oh, I really like the sound of that. I like the return to the sound of that. Do you know
right,
what I mean? It
right.
does something for me. So go on then. So then, are we up to Death of Hi-Fi yet?
Not quite, no.
Okay.
So I then I kind of moved to Spain around this time, where I did kind of, almost like a bit of a mic for hire sort of thing. Would go around, like we did the holiday camp type stuff, 1830s and all that sort
Right. Yeah.
of stuff, where I'd basically just give me a microphone and I'll go. I used to, my first ever gig at what was then the Dolly, so that sort of ages it a little bit. It was with an indie band. This is around the time.
This in Oxford, by the way, international crowd who are,
Oh
yeah,
yes,
this,
sorry, I should say it.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's around the time of Rage Against the Machine and
yeah,
Censor and
yeah.
that sort of crossover. So
Rap rock.
yeah, so I was doing a lot of stuff with rock bands, indie bands, like oh, just come on and we'll. And I remember I actually walked in with my first ever gig at the Dolly, a largely metal crowd, and I stepped on stage wearing a bandana and dressed totally different from the rest of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
band and the crowd. And this massive guy at the bar just said, "Who's this, MC Wanker?"
Did you adopt that as your moniker from then on? Like,
I did say to her, I said, you know, if this goes well, I am going to use that, and I will credit you for that. But actually, it went really well, and it was kind of exhilarating, that fact that there was an edge, that these
yeah,
people
yeah,
didn't want me there.
yeah,
You know, they were there to listen to people just that kind of
yeah. That was just life
stuff.
in Smilex, even though we were a rock band. People not wanting you there. That was like just part of the course.
But contrast it to then when I moved to Spain, playing in clubs where people generally didn't speak English, and getting up on stage and then asking
Yeah.
people to leave the stage, and nobody's understanding a word I'm saying because I didn't, you know, which is makes me sound, I didn't learn Spanish, which is, that's on me, but
Yeah. So then, so then,
so then now what did I do? I think I sort of stopped again for a bit and just started making just like beats for myself, just to kind of little mixtapes that I'd tell myself I'm sending out to people and didn't.
yeah.
And then ended up getting signed off the back of one of them to a major label.
Right.
Worked with couple of sort of people. I was really into people like Outlaw Posse when I was growing up, and then I got to work with KG, who obviously also produced people like the All Saints. I got to work with Biff Stannard, Julian Gallagher from that produced the Spice Girls and E17, like that.
Was this a development deal?
No, it was a full imprint deal with Sony. Yeah, but we got dropped before we did anything.
Right.
So it was me. There was 2 rappers, 2 singers, and they sort of marketed us as a bit of a, so like, what did they say? It was like Massive Attack, but less trip hop and more sort of pop, if that made sense. Right. So it was kind of, they called it urban pop, which I don't really know what that means.
Sure. But I guess that was the time of like urban music really becoming the.
Yeah. And they obviously, Sony, because this was Sony, they went, there's obviously a market here. We'll grab, we'll do something. Just we'll drop you. Then we signed to BMG, did the same. Didn't. This is around the time. I think we were looking at signing with Island. So Amy Winehouse was just signing, so we went to her first ever showcase, which was good.
Amazing.
And then that sort, I spent quite a long time working with them. We ended up doing a film. And some other stuff, a little bit on a film soundtrack as well. Yeah. And then we sort of never really went anywhere. So I just went back into sort of, I'm just going to learn how to sort of produce properly, because it'd always been a bit seat the pants kind of thing. Yeah. I'm just teaching myself. This is sort of applying. I'm going to actually do something with this. Yeah. Started producing for other people, sort of making beats for other rappers, and singers and stuff. And then I think there's another project before it, which is Mysterious 2, which ended up working with quite a few people on that actually. So
should have been maybe a bigger number than Mysterious 2 then.
Oh, it was terrible because the person I was working with at the time, we had the bright idea that, well, let's call it Mysterious but with a 2 instead of an S.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which is the sort of thing you go at the time, well, that's a really clever idea. And then every time anybody read it out, so when I think it was before Dave was on BBC Introducing, so it would have been Tim, I think.
Right, yeah.
They'd read it out and they'd go, what's this? Mysterio
2.
No, yeah, so it's like, okay. Every time they'd read it out, I'd be like, yeah, we named that wrong. That's not, that didn't work. And then I just went off and put that on hiatus and went to and formed Death of Hi-Fi. So that was a project that was just me, really. Just experimenting, making some weird kind of crazy lo-fi stuff in my bedroom just to amuse myself. Yeah. Hooked up with Dan, who we then started sort of doing some live stuff with visuals and all that stuff. And I think it must have been around the time probably we saw... is that when we saw you at Fat Lils? Maybe it was probably around then.
Don't know. I can't remember. I remember I reviewed a Death of Hi-Fi thing for you.
Yes, you remind me
now. And we chatted online. I don't know how much we'd met each other until when. I'm not entirely sure. I remember reviewing that and chatting with you and going, oh, this is a sorted guy. I like him. And everything.
Do you remember when you were comparing Riverside?
Yeah, maybe.
And we played then, and then you came out and we I think we spoke then on stage just as we'd either finished or just about to start.
Yes.
And then I went, Lee, you reviewed us, didn't you?
Yes.
And then I can't remember. There was something.
Bomb the Bass. I compared you to Bomb the Bass, and we chatted about Bomb the Bass for a bit. I think, yeah. And still, and how weird is that? Like that we literally both just worked on a remix with like the bassist that played on Bug Powder Dust. Do you know what I mean? Like, and all that loads of the Bomb the Bass stuff, all switching channels and all that. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? And Skip McDonald's on like some of that stuff as well. So that's
the guitar stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
We're kind of teasing something there for anybody who's actually paying attention, I guess.
Is that singles the club of the month as well?
No, that's going to be just a straight up release. So that, I mean, I don't exactly know when, so I can't really say, but let's just say it's a really exciting release with both of us doing remixes on it. And also V Vega under the dub tricks thing that he does with a friend, which is like
Yes.
proper
Yeah.
drum and bass. And it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the
It's cool.
and yeah, the original song is just wicked as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll just leave that there and let's move on. So, but it's funny that that came up. That is a cool,
Yeah.
what a cool kind of circle there of like.
Because you started, I think you were talking about Tackhead and stuff as well, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I guess the On You kind of
Yeah, all that on you stuff. I
stuff.
love all that stuff. So it's like
And that,
a dream come true having
and that was
having
funny
those
because
stems to play with, like having like a
yeah,
Doug Wimbish bass stem is just like what? Do you know what I mean?
and
He's also on is it Useless by Depeche Mode off of Ultra.
so,
It's a really good bass part. Anyway, go and have a listen after this.
so,
Anyway, but you'll be like, I love this track. You'll be like, I do know this one. It's really good. Yeah, yeah, but yeah. So anyway, so then Death of Hi-Fi that went quite well.
it was okay. We had a bit of success, did some festivals, and I just got to the point where it got effectively taken away from where I wanted it to go, and the more and more it it developed into something else, the less and less interested I was in it.
But I guess it's a very collaborative project. Like you had so many guests and stuff that it's
That's
gonna
the first album,
end up
yeah.
being quite a broad like thing. And then I guess it became more of a like central around the core members or whatever. So
Yeah.
so quite a change like dynamically between the two, like almost two different phases, you could almost say.
Yeah, it was, it was. I consider it three phases because I
Right.
think the first phase was
Yeah,
really
it was just
when
you.
I was just me putting out
Yeah.
EPs. This is when Bandcamp first sort of came around,
Yes. Yeah.
and I just go, oh, do you know what? I'm going to do this collection of songs, put it out as an EP, and I put it as a free download. And I wasn't, just
Not
wasn't.
worried
It
about
just
it.
just it was an outlet. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
And I think it then went to the second phase, which is when we did the first album, which was working with people like Copyright, Dizzy Dustin, and the Tom Hardy, and a whole bunch of other a bunch of other people. And I think that was, and I'm still kind of into it then. And I think, and this is partly my fault, I then tried to sort of change it a bit and go, because I've worked with so many different artists, it was a nightmare to try and play live because you couldn't get anyone there. A lot of these people in the US as well. So I wanted to kind of make it much smaller and focused, and I think from that I lost the what made it fun in the first place. I think it was fun trying new stuff, pushing the envelope, experimenting, and it became very much a drudge.
Yeah.
And like became about something it wasn't.
Yeah, and when the fun goes,
yeah,
that's the way. That's the time, isn't it, to call it? So, yeah.
And it felt. I'll be honest. I felt a little like it was hijacked a bit, and I'm not going to go into the details of it,
sure.
But it was something that was mine. That was then, when someone starts telling you how your thing is,
sure,
you get very protective, and
of course,
you push it away because actually, it's.
I think it's just tough. It's tough interacting with with different people, and sometimes you're thrown together by the circumstance of like what they can do mixed with their availability, mixed with their. Do you know what I mean? It's a very strange thing being in bands. You're chucked together with a lot of people, and there's no telling how all those chemistries are gonna work out anyway. At the best of times, really. Do you know what I mean? Even the most successful bands struggle to keep the dynamics like always working. So
and I think the problems come when you have a vision and you know how something wants you want something to sound, and other people then sort of don't share that same vision,
sure.
But not even share the same vision, the same perspective on that vision and what it so you can be in a band with lots of different personalities and lots of different reasons for being in that band, and that's fine, except that when other people's personalities or desires get in the way of what you actually intended it to be in the first place, then
sure,
it can create trouble, and you can start to everything starts to get in the way. Then
Yeah.
you squabble over things that you would never squabble over.
Yeah, exactly. Don't, but it's all just messy, really. And once it gets messy, it's just not like there's just too much slog in being in bands for it to also not be fun. Do you know what I mean? Like you're already lugging stuff about from cold place to cold place, like hoping for a few people to show up at somewhere, and then maybe you might or might not get any money or sell a CD or a T-shirt. Or do you know what I mean? Like all these factors are already enough to kind of like for a weaker person to just knock them out of the game entirely. So then if it's not going to be fun whilst you're doing that, then really why? Do you know, you've taken on the worst paying job for no good reason, basically.
Right, exactly.
so
And I
yeah.
think, and I think particularly as well, you start to realize you carry people in terms of you drag your people along, I think, because
Well,
they don't
yeah, I mean,
necessarily always.
even beyond that, if people just don't have the same goals, then it's just
Yeah,
complicated, isn't it? Just life
but that's
goals,
what I mean.
what
So
they want to do.
in other words, you're because you don't share the same destination in mind.
Yeah.
You're dragging people, and of course
Yeah.
they're not willing, so they're kind of resisting at every turn.
Yeah.
So that was kind of why I thought I wanted to just call time on it, and I just disbanded it.
And
Um,
then, so what was the first? Was the first Subtheory thing was that Zombie Dance? Was that the first
that
official thing
became
with the name?
that became the first thing, yes. But that
Yeah.
was it was originally Death Five, I think, but it sort of I didn't want anything associated with that, so
Yeah.
that's when I went. Um, I actually did another project in between, but I had to change the name, and that's what it eventually became. It turned into this now. I the North Sea Drifting. It was a more Scandinavian sort of ambient type stuff. Lots of sort
What's
of noise.
Scandinavian?
What Scandinavian?
As in, no, not what I know what Scandinavian is. What Scandinavian like? What? How do you mean? Like what?
Well, so have you ever listened to? Do you ever watch any like Scandi dramas?
Oh right, okay, yeah.
You know
There's
that
always
they always
this
have
is in the
they always have that same sort of type of music. It's
right.
really like reverb, heavily reverb
This
piano
is a
and
huge thing
very
in
slow.
culture that I'm obviously missing out on, these Scandinavian dramas. I don't watch them, and like
You watch
everybody's
them. Oh,
even
they're
the
brilliant.
vidcast that we had with Ben Saturn and James EMF and Grant, we got onto that topic about these dramas as well, and like it's a
You're missing out.
huge
It's
cultural touch point.
the thing is they're brilliant because they're so brilliantly shot. So they're literally like a cinematographer's dream. They're just these amazingly well constructed shots that give
Shots,
you so much mood and emotion just from that alone.
yeah.
And then they've got this really dark sort of somber, heavily reverb pianos and all kinds of odd noises, and it's just very sort of very patient and it's mood setting.
Right.
So that's kind of what I did. But and I was kind of pushing it, and then I got freaked out because there was two bands with a very similar name.
Right.
It was North Sea, no North. Oh, I forget that. North Radio Orchestra or North Sea Orchestra or something like that. And I went, that's too similar. And they were sort of in the same sort of thing. So I'm right. I'm going to change the name. Came up with the name Subtheory, and then changed the sound slightly. And it's only ever been tweaked. So people always say, oh, you've gone from this to that to this. It's not, for me, it's never really done that. It's just I've turned something up slightly.
Right, yeah.
These are all influences that have been in there from the whole time.
Of course, yeah.
It's just I've sort of amplified a certain part of it.
Yeah.
And changed it and added an extra element or something that I've wanted to do.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's definite comparisons to like, especially when you say about that, like first solo kind of era of Death of Hi-Fi, there's definite comparisons in there with the kind of, that was quite soundtracky, probably more so than the second and third wave. That was quite soundtracky stuff anyway, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Might have even said so in my review at the time.
I think you did. I seem to remember vaguely pretending for a second or two on stage that you give me a bad review. I don't know
That's
if
fine. That's fine. I don't mind. That's all right. Whatever feeds the controversy. If it gets people talking, it can't be bad, can it? Do you know what I mean? What's worse than that? Nobody mentioning anything.
Oh, absolutely. I got the worst. No, the worst review I ever had was from Q magazine.
Oh, really? Well, good to get one.
Yeah, but it just said it just basically said it was mediocre, and I thought that's weird because you may hate it because it's not Oasis, let's face it.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're Oasis, Q isn't going to like you anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But say you hate it, don't say it's mediocre. I thought that's the worst review I've ever had. I
say
prefer
shit
people
sandwich
saying,
at least. You know
well,
what I mean? Like,
yeah.
go the
So,
Spinal Tap. At least then you've got the Spinal Tap thing honoured to your name. Do you know what I mean? But so okay, so then right, where we're bang up to kind of Subtheory time. So that kind of that manifested with mainly the first EP was that was. I'm getting really discombobulated time-wise because of the lockdown. I always don't know what was a year ago and what was like almost 2 years ago now.
It was about a year ago. So I'd been doing some stuff previous to them, but I hadn't actually put anything out.
Yeah.
But the first EP was just as we went into lockdown. It was that week. It was released March.
So it's a year
20 something.
So it's almost it's kind of like a year, just over a year birthday.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. And then and then you had Impact out really quite quick after that. Oh no, then you did that other song as well. Was that was before Impact or was that?
Yes, so I did there's a choir which came out. That was part of the compilation for the Beirut release.
That's right. Yeah.
A lot's happened in the last year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Isn't it? Yeah, it's really busy.
So that was I think August, September time. Then Impact came out in October, and that's probably the bit I was probably the most pleased with at the time. That sounds an odd thing to say because obviously you were pleased with everything you released, but
sure,
sometimes you can be very
critical. Feel like you nailed something.
Yeah, that's just the bit that just came together really quickly, really coherently, and I released it and thought, that's like, I don't often go back and listen to other bits of music I've released, but I sometimes do go back and listen to that, which is quite rare.
Cool. Yeah.
It just, I don't know. So particularly, I think it reminds me of a certain time, which is an unusual thing because it was written completely in lockdown.
Yeah.
The first thing I actually wrote in lockdown, because the first EP, although it was released in lockdown.
Do you think it? Do you think you worked like? Because I mean, did you work on it a different way to like how you'd worked previously as a result of that? Was it like, okay, I like really focused on a song and then finish it, or like maybe as opposed to going back, you like did you have different processes?
Yeah, I did. So normally I take forever to finish anything, as you know from all the remixes that I've never actually got to the end of. But that's the first time when I sat down and thought, here's something, it's finished. Here's something, it's finished. Here's something, and it came in those orders. So the order it was released in, like the track order was the order I wrote it in.
Right.
It was more or less did the first track, finished it, did the second track. So it kind of felt by the time I'd finished the fourth track, there's an EP.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
It's never normally I write something else and go back and do something else, and then
I have a really messy assembly line of how I get things finally finished. Totally. Like I got so many songs, but how I actually get a release together, my God, it's messy. So but I could do with like maybe sometimes I feel like just stopping like everything I've ever done and like just starting like totally like fresh with a new set of rules or something. But then I think, no, I'll apply it to these old songs. Then I go back to them and like I get locked in that old way of working, like suddenly, you know.
Did you ever challenge yourself to say, I'm going to write something in a certain way? So normally you'd say, I do it this way. And then you challenge yourself to say, I'm going to throw that out and do something around the theme. Or if you don't normally do that, or
being honest, I use so many different weird techniques because I'm not really a musician. Like it comes from so many different angles that I use and I'm always like, oh, I'll do a song about this film that I just watched, or I'll just, do you know, both from a writing perspective and from a making the music perspective, just from I might start with the beat, I might start with the guitar, I might start with the piano, I might start with bass. Like lately, I've been writing loads on the bass. Like so, I do.
Yeah.
I like that's the first time that I've been like writing like from a bass line up. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, really?
Which
Okay,
is
because
yeah,
that's what I always start from there. That's pretty much always the, even probably before drums, which is weird because that's
right. Yeah.
thing you sort of electronic music. You think you start with that, but that's normally midway through.
It's more due to like I'm used to sitting around strumming a guitar or jumping on the organ, which is just behind me, which is not a euphemism. But then lately I've got the bass over there. Lately I've been like just playing, grabbing that. Maybe because it's right there by the sofa, so I'm like, oh yeah, grab the bass and so I've been writing so it's just like that really. I guess it's due to like playing guitar. That's kind of my primary, I guess. But then I do like a lot of music which is within a computer, so I guess I'd start that from either a sound or a beat, if you know what I mean. So but this ain't about me. So how did you get how did Thingy come together? Fader, because obviously that's why we're here. Yeah.
So I did something different this year in terms of I sort of planned the whole year, which is normally I just write something and then do something with it. This I sort of thought, actually, do you know what? I'm going to sit and think about what I want to release this year. So I kind of sat and wrote a couple of different things that I thought I'm going to finish these and get them released. So it's good news for you because I've got them already, pretty much. And I sort of had this idea that a fader it came together very quickly. It started off with a bass line, and then the sort of I wanted to bring the drums in, and I wanted to have that idea when you see in a kind of a bit of a 90s action film, there's that sort of soundtrack when people are fighting.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I sort of had in mind.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's very electronic. It was a kind of a real just an electronic kind of groove with bass line and some heavy drums going.
Fat pounding kind of track, isn't it? Yeah.
And then had this nice little breakdown, which I thought I'm going to change it completely, so it comes quite sweet and comes booming back into the thinking. And then I listened to it and I went, this needs changing. It needs like a slap round the face. It needs like something to sort of to
shake it up
and change it from what it is. And that's when I thought, you know what, I really, really need some really heavy guitar on it. Something that you probably wouldn't necessarily put together with an electronic.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like it's a weird marriage, isn't it? Because in a way, like it's like what you wouldn't expect, but fits really well because it's certain of the like somewhere between like the 80s-ness of some of the guitar like techniques and stuff and sounds mixed really well with some of the 80s-ness of some of like the drum sounds and like, but they're not a thing that necessarily, I mean, you could find it if you went like, I guess there's probably some cartoon soundtracks that have like similar makeups, if you know what I mean, like a synth pattern with a guy like shredding something over the top. Like I'm sure if you like, I can't remember Ulysses particularly now, but
Ulysses one.
I feel like that. Do you know what I mean? In that,
it's a little bit more disco though. If you listen to Ulysses soundtrack, it's a bit more disco. But do you know what it actually reminds? What I was had in mind was originally, if you listen to "Don't Make Me Wait" by Bomb the Bass, and then we go back to Bomb the Bass.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing because it has this guitar.
That guy Kenji, he plays crazy stuff, doesn't he? He's like full on whammy bar and bends and like.
And it's like, do you know what? I want it a bit like that. So it's a bit like an 80s action film, which I know I've gone from the 90s back to the 80s, but it sort of changes. And I was like, that's what I wanted. I wanted something where it wasn't one thing. It was changing and it messed with you a little bit. That's what.
Admittedly, in your defense, those action films, like a lot of them, they started in the 80s and then all the sequels ran right through into the 90s. So, you're not wrong in a way. So, but obviously Sam, so then enter Sam from the Dust Junkies. Did you know of the Dust Junkies stuff previously?
So obviously, famously, I knew they were the basis for Gangster Trippin', that sample.
Oh, of course,
from Fatboy Slim, and obviously, MC Tunes was was quite a big influence back in sort of the early 90s, I guess. Particularly because it's funny because he worked with like 808 State.
Only Rhyme the Bites.
Right, marrying the sort of the electronic and the sort of the hip hop elements of like my influences. So it was kind of that, it was very of a band that was two different parts of my influences, but then turned into something slightly different, which I quite enjoy. So I was aware of them, and then when obviously the opportunity came to get Sam on it, and not only that is that I think often you can go, oh, I want so and so on a track, and you just want them because of who they are, but to act something, I don't know if Lee, you've gone again.
You keep talking.
He just absolutely tore it apart, which was brilliant. And he sent it and it's like, oh, here's the thing. I was like, so casual about it. And I'm like, I'm listening to it going, and he sort of said, take what you want and do what, and I just listened to it. I went, I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm going to use every part of that because it is astonishing.
It's a storm, isn't it?
And you know, my jaw was dropping.
What was a revelation to me is like being a Dust Junkies fan for ages. Like they've obviously got this kind of like hip hop, chilled out rock kind of vibe, which you could compare to like, I guess, like Rage Against the Machine if they're just mellow from Manchester and smoked a load of weed or something, or maybe Fun Loving Criminals if they were really rocky and a bit like kind of edgier than they are, but his playing particularly is very Hendrixy. It's like super in that kind of like, really sounds like he's one of the closest players that I can say like that actually has like the sound and feel of Hendrix, as opposed to like people who kind of like take that influence or might be a black rock guitarist, which I love like tons of them. Do you know what I mean?
But it's not sort of like a pastiche of it. It's not someone trying to be like. But what I like about it is that he's sort of, and I don't know guitarists as well as probably you or other people do, but for me it sort of switches to lots of different styles of guitar throughout the whole what he's doing.
He's very moving.
So there's bits where on the breakdown where he's got this kind of really sweet, melancholy, sort of haunting thing going, which for me was I grew up listening to like the musical version of War of the Worlds, for example,
which
had a lot of that kind of style of guitar on it. So that was a big influence. So I was like, straight away I'm like, oh, that's, you know,
that middle section is awesome. It's real.
And then he's come full on with the sort of the tapping kind of almost like Van Halen type stuff. But again, I never know if that's an insult or not, because I don't know enough about whether, you know.
No, I think he's a big Van Halen fan, which is that's kind of what I was saying. I was just so surprised when I found out that he played all this other kind of style of stuff, because obviously within the framework of Dust Junkies, he's just done this kind of one sound or whatever, and then like I was like, whoa, you do all this stuff as well. So then when you said about the thing, I was like, he'd be really good for that, and then it just came back wicked, didn't it? So
Absolutely,
so I guess, you know, that kind of brings us up to speed. Have you got any exciting plans like just around the corner, apart from the one that we just teased, obviously?
So the one that we just teased, I've done a whole bunch of remixes for people that so one's out now, Apes to Angels, which is out on Spotify now. They asked me to do. They had this really nice, beautiful track, and there's some elements that I thought I could improve on. So every remix is sort of different. Sometimes you tear the whole thing apart. Sometimes you just sort of improve.
Want to take a certain bit of it,
Right. So that I changed it in not a huge amount, but I sort of smoothed it out and made it a bit more dreamlike. So then I've done another remix for The Last Years, which is good friends of mine. Which is out, I think, next week, the 23rd, whenever that is.
We should shout out, actually. I always get their name wrong, so you say it for me. The label.
Retro Reverb.
Retro Reverb.
To Cole and Alex and Lloyd and all those guys.
I was very scared of saying Reverb Retro or
So they're primarily
reverberation. I don't know. I definitely got there was a lot of words swimming around in my head. So I was like, "You do it quick."
so they're a label I'm signed to for. They're a synthwave label, based out of Sicily. So the whole bunch of great artists on there.
Great scene, like almost a scene within a label practically,
definitely,
which is really nice. Yeah.
So that's those two things that are coming out now. I've got the next single which I'm working on. Am I allowed to say who it features?
Oh yeah, sure, why not?
So that's Jenny from
Jenny Mateus.
Mateus used to be in Bell Stars. So that's gonna hopefully, well, I need to get cracking on it. But it's pretty much done.
Yeah, that's a vocal that's on track, ready to get sorted, basically. Yeah.
But it's slightly different. So it's gone from being quite a heavy sound of fader to something that's a bit more summery and
wicked.
Less sort of, knocking your ears down. Then I've got a whole bunch of other stuff planned for the rest of the year. So there's an album that I'm working on. So it's mostly there.
Yeah.
I've actually got a whole bunch of other. Can I talk about the other stuff I'm doing really quickly?
Hey, if you want, yeah.
So I'm doing the soundtrack, the music for a production company called Folded Pockets. So I've just done the soundtrack for a pilot for Vic Reeves, Mark Benton, and a whole bunch of other people, Morgana Robinson. So that's Curl Up and Die, which is coming out soon.
I want to do like the leg rubbing thing, but I've got I want to do the thing, but I've got the hand on the phone, so I can't do it.
Iranu. So there's that. So I've got. I'm doing the soundtrack for another one, which I think has got James Nesbitt and Maxine Peake and some other people. Which is it's a very, very dark Black Mirror-esque sort of story. It's really like this horrific. I've read it. And it's
even darker than Black Mirror.
Yeah. I got sent the script and to write to, and I was reading it going, I don't even know how you're going to. Oh, sorry, my battery. I just got a battery warning saying sorry about that. So that's all coming up, and I've got a whole bunch of other stuff sort of in line for sort of that soundtrack. I'm doing the basically all the audio for them. So
wicked.
That's pretty cool.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, that must be quite that's like a broad range of music as well. Like you never know what you're going to be called upon to do. So super exciting prospect. Like you just world of discovery, if you know what I mean.
It's terrifying because one of the briefs was for one of the episodes I had to write a really bad charity record. Yeah, that was the brief. He said, write a bad charity record. So I went, okay, I'm just going to rip off Band-Aid. Legal reasons I didn't rip them off, but that's the sort of what the influence I took.
Yeah, do watch out because me and Midge are friends on LinkedIn, so you never know who's watching.
Are you in?
You know what I mean? So
good old Midge.
He's a Bath resident, so yeah. So
is he really?
Yes, yeah. So
it's weird because you never saw.
Hearts just went up for Midge.
You never really think is his name really Midge? That's a weird name.
I'll ask him if should I ever see it. I don't think it is. I think he's maybe. Grace will know. Actually, Grace will know. It's she'll probably type it. But yeah. Hello, we are Hilo. And so cool, right? Yeah, so that's a load of stuff. So people can be excited, right? And we've just talked for about an hour, so they must be happy. That counts for entertainment in some parts of the world, doesn't it? So
it's entertainment. It's yes, as much as talking about oneself can be entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is for people to learn about you, so you're allowed to talk about yourself this time, definitely. So yeah, I think it's good to kind of have a little bit behind music, especially when it's instrumental music with no vocal in it. It's interesting to kind of hear what the mind is behind just sounds, if that makes sense. Whereas you kind of get an idea. For example, it must be weird being in a band where say for example Rage Against the Machine, where all the band are probably expected to be kind of exactly like Zach De La Rocca because of what he's putting out, if you know what I mean. So
well, I always thought, can you imagine you often get a band and then the lead singer will not be in it for one reason or another, and then you've got to come in to fill in that position.
Yes.
Can you imagine being in, like, you are the new member of Rage Against the Machine, and
yeah, that'd be
people
weird,
go,
wouldn't it?
right, because people are going to go, no, do the shouty thing, do that
Well,
shouty
yeah,
thing.
I mean, you can't do anything different. First off, I actually did. It's a long story, so I won't get into it. But I did actually go for the Stone Temple Pilots thing that they contest that they ran. So I did actually face that whole prospect and really did take it on board of like, what would I do in that position? And I figured I'd be okay, so I still went for it. But yeah, the Sexy Wild East have a question saying, when can we hear the rap? I'm pretty sure you said elsewhere that will be a never.
There is, I mean, there is, like, if you probably look on YouTube, there is some, maybe.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I
did take a lot
backwards,
of it down.
not forwards for that.
Well, yeah, to be honest, I took everything down. You know, I'm just getting rid of this. So there may be something out there. I actually can remember loads of weird raps that are like things like the Grain Chill rap, and I can't remember off the top of my head now. But there was loads.
I'll do one with you if you can remember. What's the name? You've got to hold the ball and press it at the right time.
You can be slow or fast, but you must get to the line. They'll always hit you and hurt you. If any an attack, there's only one way to beat.
And that's round the back. Catch me if you can, because I'm the England man. And 3 lions on my shirt. Something.
Can you believe that was members of Joy Division?
Yes, I can, very much so. I did that particularly because I knew that that Neil Sexy Wild East is a big fan of all the indie and all that business. So yeah, so I knew he'd know the reference. I once met what's his name as well? The actor, British actor.
Keith Allen.
Yes. And that's a whole nother story in itself. But he was quite full of.
I met Peter Hook at Truck a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I met him once getting out of a car in Manchester. Yeah, actually, yeah. You did see people about in Manchester quite a lot, kind of like Oxford, where you could actually genuinely bump into a Radiohead member quite easily. You know.
Oh, on the bus, the amount of times I used to sit there and Tom York would be like, the other side. So like, first time you're like, it's Tom York.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always excited.
And then the third or fourth time, you're like,
I think by the 5th time, he's definitely less excited to see me.
Well, yes. Whereas it's because you start licking his leg, probably.
Well, I mean, you know, if I even let go of it for long enough, do you know what I mean? Yeah, so, okay, wicked. Well, that was good fun. Thank you very much, Andy.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Please do, everybody, go and check out Andy at the Subtheory. And on all the other social medias and things.
It's only the dot on Instagram because I signed up with the Subtheory and then forgot the password and couldn't get it back into it. So
yeah, but you do own that account, so no one else is going to pop up with it. Lovely, so that's good.
No.
So yeah, in this world of ownership of internet domains, that's all that matters, really, isn't it?
It's yes, no, absolutely right. It's sorry, the dog's just come back in.
Coming in for like the encore.
Are you going to come in? He's just looking. It's no, he's gone shy.
That's right. We'll pay proper fee another time.
Can I shout out and say happy birthday to Lily for tomorrow?
Of course.
Happy birthday, Lily.
There you go. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, much celebrations. Throw up like people throw up some birthday symbols in the comments, like little celebration signs and stuff. I don't know how to do that. So, but yeah, whilst they're throwing up all the celebratory little things, there's lots of hearts going up at the side there.
Oh, that's nice.
Whilst they're doing that, I'll say go check out www.quickfixrecordings.com for the single. Fader. It is awesome. It will be streaming at the end of the month, but the best way that you can, and it'll be on Bandcamp with loads of exclusive remixes. I can tell you an exclusive. Here's a surprise for you, Andy. The Sexy Wild East have done a remix of Fader, and so I've heard it, and it's really good.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear
really good as well. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
So there's a little exclusive for you.
Now that I sent the right files, you mean?
Yeah, when you finally did said, yeah, I mean, they almost remixed your entire radio show discography, but like instead they
Oh,
decided the song would be
you know
better.
when you're doing like 4 things at once and you think, oh, I just copy paste it. There you go.
15
That's
Dropbox links. Well, also you
Because
sent me about like 3 different Dropbox links that day, so it's like
right,
one of them
right.
was bound to be wrong, right?
And I think I was probably sending the shows. I probably sent the stems to the radio instead.
I would guess so.
Sorry.
Your
sorry.
show's going to be weird next week when it goes.
It's like loads of bits of silence. There's loads of silence, then a bit of something, and silence again.
Experimental. I think it might catch people's ears, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah, cool. So yeah, so then, but the best way, obviously, you can help the artists and the whole process of making music and not being, you know, totally at the whims and mercy of big corporate paymasters is helping the singles club. So please do check it out. And thank you very much, Andy. And no doubt I'll see you talking on another bit of social media sometime soon.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. See you soon.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Appreciate you taking your time. Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
mate.
Thank
Take it
you.
easy.
See you,
Bye.
Andy. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.